Hey, this is Mrs. Reichelt, and our next video we're going to talk about oogenesis and the ovarian cycle. So a couple of I think these are really interesting facts. So the total supply of eggs for a female are present at the time of birth. So that means that all egg formation actually occurs during fetal development, which is kind of cool. That's very different from a male because males are going to produce sperm cells every day of their life after they start puberty. So then the ability to release eggs is actually going to begin at puberty, and then reproductive ability ends at the onset of menopause, and then oocytes are matured in developing ovarian follicles. So the primary oocytes are inactive until puberty, so although a female is going to have all of their eggs that they are ever going to have once they're born, those are going to be inactive until the onset of puberty. Basically, you'll have follicle stimulating hormone and you'll have luteinizing hormone, and they're going to help to basically mature those eggs for the release of in ovulation. So the follicle stimulating hormone, or FSH, causes some primary follicles to mature each month. The cyclic monthly changes constitute the ovarian cycle. So it's a cycle. So sometimes we call it the menstrual cycle, but the actual menses, or the menstruation part, is just a few of those days of the overall ovarian cycle. So meiosis is going to start inside a maturing follicle. This produces a secondary oocyte and the first polar body. Follicle development to the stage of vesicular follicle takes about 14 days. Ovulation of that oocyte occurs with the release of luteinizing hormone. So basically, you'll have inside of the ovary, you'll have an egg that's being developed, and then eventually it will leave that ovary, and that's what we call ovulation. It'll go into the fallopian tubes. Then the secondary oocyte is released, and it's surrounded by basically another structure that allows for keeping that egg. Basically, it's going to help it mature. So here's kind of a diagram of the entire menstrual cycle. So basically what happens is a person can track their body temperature as they ovulate. This is the time of the month when a female can become impregnated. But basically, during what you have during day 13 to 14, so day 1, I guess I should maybe backtrack. Day 1 would be the first day of the female in a menstrual cycle, or sometimes we call it the period, when they start their period. So you're going to be bleeding these days. Usually, it's typically from day 1 to 5 or 1 to 7 or somewhere around here. Okay, at that point, then all of a sudden your hormones are going to escalate, and by the time you get to your body temperature will escalate, and by the time you get to day 14, this is when we call that ovulation. Basically what happens is you have a spike in a lot of different hormones, and it releases that egg. This is the point in your in the ovarian cycle where a female could become pregnant. If the female does not become pregnant, which is in this case, this is showing a female not being pregnant, basically those hormones are going to drop, and basically you're going to have onset of the menstrual cycle again, or the menses right here. So you might have heard here that some people say when women are menstruating at the time, or if they're on their period, sometimes people say, "You're so moody and you're so hormonal," but actually it's kind of the opposite. There's actually a lack of hormones there, so you can see all of those hormone levels are almost at the bottom, whereas when they're ovulating, those hormone levels are going to be really high. So meiosis is completed after ovulation only if the sperm penetrates and an ovum is produced. So there's 2 additional polar bodies that are produced as well. So I think the next diagram will show you a picture of what this looks like. So once an ovum is formed, you'll have 23 chromosomes that will be combined with 2 of those, I guess not 2, but with those sperm to form a fertilized egg, or a zygote. If the secondary oocyte is not penetrated by the sperm, then it'll die and it will not complete meiosis to form an ovum. So basically for the female, maybe I'll go back here and kind of write over this. So basically what that means is female is going to start with 46 chromosomes, just like a male. then it's going to go through some DNA replication, and it'll make 2 cells with 46, okay, chromosomes in each. So we call that meiosis 1. Then they're going to go through just like a sperm cell, and you're going to make more cells with 23. However, only one of those cells is going to be good enough to make an actual egg cell. All of these other ones are either polar bodies or they're not going to be fertilized. So at the result, you're going to have one egg that's being formed. So the difference in meiosis is that males will produce 4 functional sperm at the result of that process, whereas females are going to produce 1 functional egg and 3 polar bodies. And then there's some differences in this sex cell structure. So sperm are very small, they're motile, they're equipped with nutrients and seminal fluid. The egg, on the other hand, is really large. It doesn't move around, and it has nutrient reserves to help nourish the embryo until implantation occurs. And then here's some diagrams of the actual reproductive system and meiosis occurring.